Welcome to our interview series with WellNest Global and international holistic experts, Consilience, Exploring New Ways of Thriving. You can find this series on our YouTube channel at WellNest Global. I'm Valarie Roberts, your hostess, and our intention here with this program is to empower our audience with tools, wisdom, and resources to assist you in your journey of thriving in life. Whether that means peace of mind, satisfaction, success, or surprise, we'd like to be your source of connection to help you find that. So today, I'd like to introduce you to our guest, John Britton. And John, thank you so much for sharing your time and being here with us today.
It's a pleasure, and thank you very much for inviting me on and giving me the chance to chat with your audience.
Yes, we're thrilled to have you here. And so just to start off, I'd like you to tell our audience a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, your passions, and just anything you'd find intriguing, you think they'd find intriguing about your gifts and your lifestyle.
Okay, so these days I'm a coach and a mentor and an author and a consultant and all that sort of thing. But this is relatively new for me because for 30 years I was a performer and a teacher of performers, and for some of that time an academic in the performance world and so on. My background is I started off as an actor more than 30 years ago now, but that very rapidly expanded to directing inner city youth theatres. Then that began to expand into working very strongly in physical work, which then became about working in dance and acrobatics and circus and all that sort of thing. I was a performer, then I became a director. I was also still a performer. And then increasingly, I began to find my own way of training people to integrate their bodies and minds, because physical performance is a mental discipline. It's about the integration of thought and action. So I began to develop my own way of training performers. Then people asked me to start writing about it, so I started writing books about it. For a while, I became an academic, so I could research it in more detail. Then I left university and became a full-time artist again. I taught all over the world. I taught and directed all the way from Australia, across America, Central America, Colombia and Mexico, India multiple times, China, right the way across Europe. Endless shows, endless teaching, endless workshop, and it was amazing. It was fantastic until I had a burnout, a breakdown, and a heart attack. Mm-hmm. And then the world had a burnout, breakdown, and heart attack when the pandemic came along, and that wiped out the remnants of my career. So, things have opened up again now, and I do a bit of teaching of performers, a little bit, but not much, because you see, through all that time, even before the pandemic, and I had a sort of a personal collapse, I was really interested about the fact that what performers learn how to do, what we know how to do, are not performance skills, they're life skills. Yeah, there's a surface level of acting skill, projecting your voice to the back of the theatre, working out how to do certain dance forms or whatever, that's surface level. The deep level, if you think about what an actor knows, an actor has to know how to be fully present. An actor has to know how to connect. They have to know how to respond to the unexpected. They have to be able to adapt their performance when something goes unexpectedly in a new direction. They have to learn how to communicate with other performers and with an audience. They have to be able to repeat things multiple times without ever losing quality. They have to be able to inhabit the role they're playing with absolute authenticity. They have to be creative. They have to be playful. They have to be joyous. They have to be lighthearted. They have to make the whole thing look totally effortless. Those are life skills. Mm-hmm. And underneath all of them, all the way through my work, there's been one word. And that word is presence. Now, when I had a heart attack and when I saw my career collapse because of the pandemic and, all of this, I also realized at the deepest possible level that presence is the superpower. It's the thing that gets you through everything. Every interaction is made more efficient, more effective if one can be present during it. And there are very good reasons for that. And that's now my passion.
Wow, it's a lot to unpack right there. Yeah, you said that you people began asking you to do this work, to write about it, to teach them, and to share what you do. And I just think that's a beautiful moment in life, right? When you are doing something that you love, and then people are asking you to show them and teach them. That's when you're doing something really special, and you're able to offer something beautiful to people when they're asking for that. A lot of us go a long time in our life and don't know, what we should be doing or whatnot, but that's a sweet spot. So I really think that's beautiful that all came together for you and created this story of your life, with you traveling and doing that, and kind of living out the beauty of your creativity. So very cool. So when we first initiated our conversation, you were suggesting that you would talk a little bit about presence today. And I think you really prefaced that beautifully with how all of your skills have that underlying foundation of presence. So share with us a little bit about how you came to that realization, and how you integrate that into your life as well.
Okay, so presence is one of those words that's a little bit difficult. Sometimes people think it's, you've either got presence or you haven't, or they think it's something kind of a little bit spooky and spiritual. Oh, you got to do something to become all present. Or they think it's sort of a really nice idea, but they don't know what it is. It's one of those words that floats around without many people actually trying to nail it down to a meaning. Now, my starting point, if I'm working with anyone, is there's no point in working on something unless we know what we're trying to work on. I'm pretty straightforward. We could spend all day trying to develop something that doesn't exist, but it'd be a bit of a waste of our time. So my starting point is what is presence? And I'm a really simple person. See, when you're training performers, you've got to keep things simple, not because performers are stupid, but because performers have to do stuff. It's not theoretical performance, it's practical. You've got to be able to say to performers, this is what we need to do. So when I'm talking about presence, I talk about it really simply. It's like this. Presence is not something out there. Presence is your natural state. My simplest definition of presence is how you are when you're not distracted. And if you think about that definition, it suggests that you don't have to do stuff to get present. You need to stop doing stuff. Presence is doing less. It is not wasting your time filling your mind with useless thoughts. It is not constantly trying to do 25 jobs at once. It is not trying to have a conversation with somebody while also scrolling through Facebook on your phone. Presence comes from doing less. The discipline of presence is training yourself to notice when you are distracted and to choose to stop being distracted, to choose to do less, to choose to trust that if you've got 20 things to do by the end of the day, you will do them better if you calmly and efficiently do all 20 of them one after the other than if you try to do all 20 at once while screaming at your kids because they're annoying you. Presence is doing less, but connecting with reality. Presence is about not saying, what if this, what if that, I should have done this. Presence is saying, what is happening now and what can I do about it? It's really simple. Now, not easy to do because the human mind is constantly, they talk in meditation about the monkey mind, constantly shooting off in 1,000 directions at once. So there is a discipline involved, but the objective, the aim, what we're trying to do is actually dead simple. It's pay attention to what's happening inside and outside. Don't be distracted. Do less. So my fascination with presence is based on partly a certain level of laziness, which is I would rather do less. But I'm also ambitious. I would rather do less and achieve more, rather than do more and achieve less. And training actors, when you see an actor constantly acting and acting and acting, it's awful. It's horrible to watch. But I remember a story of the playwright Arthur Miller, who was married to Marilyn Monroe. Miller was one of America's great playwrights, and he was married to Marilyn Monroe at one point. And she was in a film that Miller wrote, and I think James Dean was in it as well. I can't remember the details of the story, but either James Dean or Arthur Miller said that he was really annoyed with Marilyn on set because she never seemed to be doing anything. She would just sort of turn up and say her lines and wander off. And then they watched her on the rushes, on the film afterwards, before the editing, and they went, my God, she is doing everything that needs to be done. She's completely present. She is hitting every single nail in that performance, but it didn't look like she was doing anything. I'm fascinated by that. The person who seems to be doing nothing, and then you go, wow, they just did everything they need to do. It's amazing. So presence is about learning to do less so we can achieve more. And that's the through line of all of my work.
One of the things that comes up a lot that I thought of when you were explaining that was, I work with a lot of businesses, and then I talk to a lot of people in general who are trying to find resources. And in our modern society, for many people, especially if you're living in the city or, in very busy communities, there are unlimited distractions. I mean, you could be 100% distracted all day long from the moment you open your eyes till you go to sleep, scrolling on your social media, reading the news, busying yourself with all kinds of events that may or may not be meaningful to you. And one of the things we end up talking about is that inspired action and understanding what is it that inspires you? What is it that brings you joy or peace or satisfaction or fulfillment? And beginning to notice what you're busying yourself with that's extraneous and what's really meaningful to you. And what you're talking about here with presence is what helps you discern that. Like you said, noticing how you're feeling in that moment. Why are you busying yourself with that? Why are you reading the news if it's saddening you or discouraging you or upsetting you, So that's really, I think, a powerful piece is just the beginning to notice instead of just actively rushing through all of the things or staying distracted all the time.
Yeah, you see, for me, the starting point, I believe very strongly, the starting point of any process of growth or change is noticing. In fact, I would go further, and certainly when I'm directly training people, noticing your habits, I would say 60 or 70% of changing. By the time you've noticed, you are most of the way towards changing. Then you need to do something about it. The things you're saying about intent and all of that, that's so important. But because I like things really simple and I'm very practical in my work, I refine those into thinking principles. Principles aren't rules. Principles are really useful bits of advice. I have 8 principles of presence. For example, here's one of them. Pay attention to things you can do something about. Seems so simple, doesn't it? So obvious. Everyone goes, oh yeah, of course. Why am I going to pay attention to something I can't do anything about? How much of your day do you spend paying attention to things you can do absolutely nothing about, including, I wish I hadn't done that yesterday, including, oh God, I really hope that person doesn't dislike me. Oh, I hope I didn't upset them. We can't do anything about any of those things. What can you do something about? You can do something about what is happening now, or you can spend time making plans for how to respond to future events. So the principle reminds you that when your mind starts to scatter all over the place, oh, I must look at this, I must look at that, go, no, hold on, out of all of these possible distractions, you're right, we could spend all day being distracted. Out of all these possible distractions, which one are something you can do something about? Here's another principle of presence. Know your hierarchy of tasks. You see, at any given moment, I break it into 3 levels: things you must do, things you could do, things you shouldn't do. Really simple. We spend an awful lot of time on stuff we could do rather than things we should do. So you begin to do a task. I've got an email to write. I'm going to spend 20 minutes working out which font looks best. Not essential. What's essential is to get the words down on the paper. Then if you've got time, find a nice font for it. Know the difference between could and should. And also spend an awful lot of time and going, I've got an email to write. I wonder if anyone's commented on that photograph on Instagram. Bang, off you've gone. Really using these principles, there's 8 of the principles in the end, using these principles guide you to notice, because you're right, noticing is central, guide you to notice what you are doing with your thinking, and they guide you to think better. Another of the principles, which is my favorite, is when there's nothing for you to do, do nothing. Stop interfering, stop overworking, stop adding one more thing, stop going, oh, let me help you with your job. If you have done your job and it is complete, or you have completed what you need to do for now, stop. Don't ruin things by overworking. Don't ruin your mind by filling it up with clutter. Stop and give yourself the integrated time to allow yourself to be calm, because that's the heart of mental health. No, I've done that job, put it aside. I've said what I need to say in this conversation. I don't have to have the last word. I've said what I need to say. Put the conversation aside. And so we begin to move towards doing less, but doing everything that needs to be done. It's not one of my principles, but something I say often when I'm teaching is do everything that needs to be done, nothing that doesn't need to be done. That's a good guide for an actor. When you're on stage, you do everything you need to do and don't do anything. Nothing you don't need to do, everything you do need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you shared 3 very generous gifts right there. As far as, one of the questions I was going to ask you is like, how would we get started if someone's listening and they're just like, presence, I am totally overwhelmed. I'm exhausted. I'm frustrated. I have kids running around and my husband needs this and I've got to do this for work. And I don't have time to be present. So the three starting points that they could have right there is just to begin noticing,
Mm-hmm.
and then sorting out what they should be doing, what they could be doing, and what they shouldn't be doing, because chances are, we're all doing things that we really have no business spending time doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's mostly because of distraction, because there's so much to look at in our world, especially with technology, and then I love that about stopping, because I think back to when, when I was a little girl, I spent a lot of time at my grandma's house, both of my grandparents' houses. I was very fortunate in that way. And I was able to witness her spending time sitting on her porch with a glass of, cup of tea or a glass of water or whatever, and just doing nothing, listening to the birds. Just watching the wind in the trees, and I'd just sit there with her on the porch and we would do nothing. And I think people that I grew up around had a good habit of incorporating that into their day or their life. And now when we do that, when we just sit on the porch, it reminds me of those times and that peace, and the peace of mind. And I won't lie. Sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I should be doing this or this or this. And I have to pull myself in and be like, I need do nothing right now.
We need, you're totally right. We must absolutely break this addiction to busyness. Even if we feel we can't, we need to recognize it as an addiction, partly because it's not very good, it's extremely bad for our mental health, but also it's inefficient. When you are, quote, doing nothing, you are doing the most important stuff. You see, all the experience, all the reading you do, all the scrolling through Facebook, all the conversations you have, they load things into your sort of immediate memory.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you load more things in, all that stuff in your immediate memory gets wiped out. The brain isn't a computer, but there are some similarities. It's like your immediate memory is full, and the new stuff wipes out the old stuff. When you are doing nothing, your immediate recent experience begins to integrate with your existing knowledge, and you move from information to understanding. Creativity emerges from doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Good ideas emerge from doing nothing. Better relationships emerge from doing nothing. Information is just digital bits of stuff. We don't want information. Computers do information. We want understanding. We want wisdom. And that comes from a willingness to integrate into your life times of, quote, nothing, because they're not nothing. They're actually times of being fully human.
Yes. Yeah. Wonderful. Totally feel that on the creativity. It's only when I'm still that I'm inspired, that's when it comes. So John, we're approaching the end of our time together, and I want to go ahead and wrap this up, but I want to give you a few minutes to share any final thoughts that you wanted to share with the audience, anything that you wanted to say that we didn't get to say, and then also let our viewers and listeners know how to find you and how they can reach out to you if they want to know more.
Okay, so a simple thought. I said at the beginning, people think presence is something really complicated and so on. The simple thought is this: presence, you were born with present, you live in the present, and you will ultimately die in the present moment. It's your birthright. Presence is your birthright. Nothing and no one should deprive you from actually accessing your life as you live it. It's your life. Demand for yourself the right to contact your own life. But if you want it, you need to work for it. Training the mind is a personal discipline. We might share it, do it in communities, but it's a personal discipline. But never, never, never give up on your own life by saying, oh, I'm not very good at being present. Learn to be good at being present, because that's about learning to live your life in all 360 degrees, multiple dimensions. It's about living a technicolor life. Now, if people want to be in touch with me, I have the 8 principles of presence I talked about. I've actually written a book not so long ago about that. The easiest way to do that is to I'll send you the link so that you can put it in any notes, but you can buy that directly from me, or you can find that on Amazon. It's available as a Kindle book. It's available as a print book and so on. What I'd really love is for people to join my mailing list, mainly because my mailing list is very important to me. It's my community. Community is really important. Anyone on my mailing list, they get a discount on any programs I launch that I'm actually financially responsible for. And I'm about to launch 3 or 4 major new projects around presence, around the notion of self, around achieving wisdom, around overcoming traumatic adolescence. So there's a whole set of things here that I'm working on, which I'm not quite ready to launch yet. If people join my mailing list, as soon as they are going to be launched, the people on my mailing list are the first to know. And to join my mailing list, go to my website, which is www.johnbritton.co, not com, just .co. And there's a contact page on there, at the bottom of the contact page, a thing that says, join my mailing list. And then you join that, and I send you an email saying, yay, you're part of the community. And then from there, you can find out how to buy the presence book if you want, or I've got some movement work based on embodied presence and so on. All this stuff is available. The main thing, though, is we don't get to talk unless we're in communities. So I would encourage people to connect, or just write to me and say, I'm stuck. And I will write back to you, because I do reply to everybody who writes to me.
Wonderful. Awesome. And we will, yes, we will definitely post all of those links below here in the description on the YouTube video. So people will be able to connect with you on your website and through all of those avenues to interact with you and see your resources. So I am so grateful for you and your time today, and for being present here with me. Really enjoyed this conversation and personally grew. And I know that our community is gonna take a lot of value from this. So thank you so much for sharing today. And
thank you, Valarie. It's been a real joy to talk with you.
Yes, good. I'm glad that you could make it. So I'm just going to go ahead and end this recording here for now, and we'll see you all soon.